Women will never run as fast as men, and women basketball players will never jump as high as male basketball players. And because of NBA having full-blown athletes, most people see WNBA as a joke.
Score foul, 0, she is Nurse.
Help me out so I don't have to escort you out, sir.
The WNBA officials expanded to 10 teams this week, adding franchises in Detroit and Washington, D.C. But before you get too excited about the new additions to the league, remember, all of the players are still women.
But we need to agree with one thing. You and I have been seeing more women basketball, whether it's in the Twitter space, TikTok, or YouTube, and the reason for that is this person right here, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin's virality really caught me by surprise. I'm not from the States and I don't watch college basketball, but she's been all around my social media feed. I've always been an open-minded person. I used to watch a lot of Asian games, Filipino, Japanese leagues, so I always had the perception that you can learn more about basketball by watching different cultures playing it. But women's basketball never sticked with me, and it's not because that they can't dunk or miss so many open layups, which to be honest, when you see them missing 10 semi-wide open layups per game, like you begin questioning yourself, what the hell are you watching? But the only reason why I've never followed women's basketball that much was the skill gap. And what the hell do I mean by that? We all should agree that NBA's talent pool is stacked. With each year there are more and more skilled players coming into the league, while ever-increasing TV revenues allow the NBA to hand out bigger salaries to their players, and also to attract athletes from Europe, who in the past refused smaller NBA deals because they made more money in EuroLeague while having a more significant role in their teams. But more crucially, the average NBA player just got better with each decade, which of course lifted the quality of basketball being played in the NBA. Now with women's basketball, the role players are just purely unwatchable. My number one female basketball player is Marine Johannes. She's crafty as hell, talented and skilled, but I'm not going to dedicate my precious time to watch 15 minutes of Marine playing basketball. My point is that skilled players like Stewart or Plum are overshadowed by how unskilled is the average WNBA athlete. On top of that, female basketball stars are nowhere near the level that, for example, Nikola Jokic is. And that's pretty normal. Women's basketball is relatively a new thing, so the talent pool is small. WNBA was founded 28 years ago. I talked about the importance of basketball culture in my video about China, basically why Chinese struggle internationally and don't have any players in the NBA despite the whole country being crazy for basketball. Well, the sport there is relatively new, just like with women's basketball as a whole. I don't know if you noticed or not, but there are dozens of current NBA players that have a father who in the past was a basketball player themselves, even though this year's under-17 US national team, the leading scorer is Cameron Boozer, the son of an ex-NBA player Carlos Boozer. Call it basketball genes, call it having a dad figure and a dream to go in his footsteps, it definitely helps to raise better basketball players when you grow up in a basketball family. So women's basketball is just too young to have a bigger talent pool, and the clear skill gap never gave me a strong reason to stick around watching them play. I've seen some nice games, but most of WNBA games were a huge miss for me. I just didn't like it. And I think that's the main problem. Women's basketball never had a player that is a must-watch, a player that both attracts the attention and manages to satisfy the needs of that attention. WNBA never had a true superstar that everyone is talking about and is just waiting to see that player in action. I mean, until now.
This is all about the Caitlin Clark effect.
Everywhere they go, they've been selling out all the other arenas, and the fans that are going, they're not cheering against her. They're there to cheer for Caitlin Clark, to see her do great things, and Caitlin Clark is enjoying every minute of what's happened this year.
The focus wasn't on the home team. Northwestern hosting Wednesday night's women's basketball game against Iowa. But people who lined up for hours say they showed up for the Caitlin Clark show.
Caitlin Clark is the GOAT. Just watching her passion in the game, the way she just plays with her team. I like her when she just shoots from half court.
It's Clark. Oh my! From Schenectady, Clark!
Caitlin's impact to women's basketball at the age of 22 is just insane. Clark was filling out football stadiums of 56,000 people when she was still in college, while dropping 49 points and shattering all-time scoring record with a half-court logo three-point shot.
How will she go for history?
Upsetting undefeated teams and clocking in triple-doubles in these sellout stadiums, Caitlin was rewarding fans for trusting her with their time and money. She was talked about in the mainstream media, also social media, as she reached both younger and older audiences. And Caitlin is such a deal-breaker for women's basketball, because you have a player who is a magician on the court with a great marketable personality, and I will expand on that in a moment. The Caitlin Clark effect was a real thing in college, but I think it went into full swing when she got into WNBA as the league was breaking records. records. 2.1 million viewers across all platforms tuned into Caitlyn's debut game, as it was the most watched WNBA game ever on ESPN. In the first 2 weeks of the season, WNBA League Pass subscriptions tripled and reached the highest average minutes watched in history. The number of subscriptions from May 2023 went up by 335% last month, while merchandise sales are up 236% over last season, and 3 rookies including Caitlyn, Angela Reese, and Cameron Brink are in top 5 in jersey sales. Now hold your hats for some facts. When Clark plays, there's an 87% opponent attendance jump from their usual average, and overall Clark has accounted for 33% of the total WNBA attendance in 2024. And when Clark is on the court, WNBA games average 15.5k fans in attendance compared to 7k fans when she's not in action. And also, I should fully credit the number 2 overall pick Cameron Brink, as the LA Sparks draw an average of 11k fans on the road, while fellow rookie Angela Reese and the Chicago Sky are the 3rd on the list with 10k fans on the road. So this is really important. All 3 rookies are helping to draw people to the stands, it's just that Caitlyn's numbers are insane to grasp. And I was one of them people who was waiting for the start of WNBA season just to watch Caitlyn Clark. I subscribed to the League Pass, watched and rewatched every single Caitlyn's game, and what can I say, the Indiana Fever since 2017, that's in 7 consecutive years, failed to make the playoffs. And if you didn't know, you have to be ahead of 4 teams to make it to the postseason. So Fever not making the playoffs for 7 straight years means that they stink as a team. But I loved every single second of Caitlyn Clark. The way she feels comfortable in transition, the way she plays with absolutely no hesitation, the Steph Curry range jump shots, the silky smooth touch combined with great court vision, and the fact that she enjoys involving her teammates in the offense makes Caitlyn Clark a complete basketball player. Of course with certain flaws like not understanding when to slow down the game, which results in silly turnovers, but that will come with experience. So the current fuzz about Caitlyn reminds me of Kelsey's statement that she made a couple of years ago, that Kelsey wishes for the fans to not come and support her, but rather to come and watch her play basketball.
It's the narrative around, women's sports is like, oh, I go to support. Like when you go watch KD play, no one's saying, oh, I'm gonna go buy tickets to support KD. You're gonna say, oh, dude, I'm gonna watch KD have 30 tonight.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And like one of the best players in the world.
Right.
The narrative around women's sports, especially in the WNBA, is like, oh, maybe it's me. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go support Kelsey tonight. I don't want you to support me. I want you to come watch me hoop.
Yeah.
So there's like a difference, right? It feels like charity. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to earn it.
Now I love this narrative. Overall, I like Kelsey's thinking process on what and how WNBA should improve. Obviously, she had some bad takes, the same old story about not wanting the same wage as NBA players, but rather wanting the same percentage from jersey sales as NBA players. I will expand on the infamous topic of the wage gap in female basketball later on. But yes, I like how Plum pointed out that she doesn't want charity, but rather wants to earn people's attention, and exactly that's what's happening with Caitlyn Clark. The reason why you and me got into basketball, depending on your age and country, is most likely because of Michael Jordan, Kobe, Allen Iverson, Steph Curry, LeBron James, or any other superstar basketball athlete. These guys help to export NBA to other countries. You can be from Africa or Europe, but I can guarantee that you and I were yelling Kobe when throwing rolled up paper into a trash bin. But there's a difference from having internet clout and getting clicks on YouTube to actually being a superstar player. LaMelo Ball is popular amongst younger fans, he generates clicks on social media, but LaMelo, differently from Steph Curry, doesn't sell out arenas, and vice versa. You can be a great player, but you just aren't marketable enough. Now, with women's basketball, for the longest time I believe that must-watch player will be Gigi Bryant. The bond that she had with Kobe, and Kobe himself being involved in the process of Gigi becoming the best possible version of herself, going to different NBA games and breaking down the game on the sidecourt for Gigi was always so sweet to witness. Kobe's presence brought attention to the Mambas team, and people were genuinely interested in Mambas Academy's players. So still to this day, I honestly believe that Gigi passing away was a huge loss for women's basketball. I do think that she would have eventually carved a successful professional basketball career. Even if she would have been in the shadow of her dad, it would have brought much needed exposure to the league. But we could only speculate how the WNBA would look like with Caitlyn Clark and Gigi Bryant going against each other. So Caitlyn, being a magnificent player on the court while having a charming personality, is a golden goose for women's basketball. Just think about it. Before Caitlyn Clark, the things that we associated WNBA with was pity, drama, and straight up whining. Like for example, the time when Luka Doncic showed support to Dallas Wings, he got called out by a different WNBA team for being a plastic fan and not attending any games. Or every single time a female player talked about the wage gap, completely missing the point that the league is bleeding in money every single year. Also, a fun fact. According to a Washington Post report, the WNBA and its teams will lose about 50 mil this year despite the rise of popularity. I do want equality, and I do acknowledge the fact that women in certain fields face discrimination, wage gap, casual and hardcore sexism. I've never walked in female shoes, I can't understand the difficulties that women face every single day, but I acknowledge the fact that we as a society need to step up when it comes to equality. But sports are an entertainment industry, and this industry is driven by demand. And if there's no demand, I'm sorry, but you're not getting paid equally, as your line of work isn't important to our society. You're not a doctor, you're not a teacher, you're just a basketball player. And I understand that it sounds deflating for every single girl who wishes one day to be a professional basketball player, but then we have to have a conversation what WNBA's community, the players, are doing to change that. The last thing that I've heard about WNBA before Caitlin Clark was Brittany Griner getting arrested in Russia for a small amount of weed, then the prisoner swap situation, and the aftermath being her coach complaining for the arena not being a sellout for Griner's return, even though for a WNBA game it looked packed.
It was great, but like honestly, come on LA, like we didn't sell out the arena for BG. Like I expected more, you know, to be honest, right? Like it was great, it was loud, but how was it not a sellout? How was it not a sellout?
My point is that for me, a neutral, open-minded basketball fan who's not an incel, I found the WNBA's reputation to be annoying because of the attitude problem. I would like to think that it's a small group of women who speaks loudly and it gets picked up by social media, so then we have this image of female basketball players constantly complaining. But I mean, every piece of content that I've heard before this year's WNBA season was this weird point of view that they deserve my attention, that they deserve the TV networks talking about them, and they deserve the company sponsoring them as athletes. Talking about money, the average salary of a WNBA player in 2022 was over $100k US. After 1 year, it increased by $45,000. For reference, the average US salary in 2024 was $64k US per year. And the highest paid athlete in WNBA was Jackie Young, earning $250k USD for the 2024 season as a part of a 2-year $500,000 deal. Now, maybe this is my Lithuanian broadcast talking, but WNBA players earn good money. Also considering the fact that many WNBA stars play in Europe, where they earn from 300k to 600k euros per year, it seems as a dream job. Of course, if you make it to the top level, but even here, we have complaining. So this was my first introduction to WNBA's environment. Mello's short documentary titled The Second Jobs of WNBA All-Stars, where they show Simone Augustus playing in Russia. Before jumping into analyzing the absurdity of that documentary, you have to realize some much needed context about WNBA players and maybe overall the American athletes playing in Europe. So here's the catch. The best money before the war in Ukraine was being paid in Russia. I believe it still has to be the same situation, at least with women's basketball. With men's basketball, there's way more options to get paid in countries like Spain, Greece, or Turkey, but the Russian teams in women's basketball could offer 3 times the money that other teams in Europe couldn't match. The only problem about that is that you're living in Russia for a whole year. It's cold, it's depressing, the people look depressing, a high chance that you're not even living in Moscow. In my lifetime as a basketball fanatic, I've seen hundreds of out-of-college American players coming into Lithuania and leaving the country during or after the winter. There are smallest towns in Lithuania that has professional teams that me myself would never imagine living in, so I even couldn't comprehend the culture shock of an American player from Cali living in Northern Europe. And there's always small things that adds up. The food, the lifestyle, I mean, it sounds funny, but there's definitely an adjustment to be made from the American lifestyle to European.
You know, like explain the overseas life is like different. It's not just that you're like in a different country, like there's no washer machines, like you don't have an oven, like you can't drive and you have to drive stick. Like there's just so many lifestyle changes that have to happen to do that. And it's not just like I'm in a different country, like your lifestyle is so different for that time period.
But if you decide to grind your way to the top, I always give an excellent example, that is Kevin Punter. In 2016, Kevin went undrafted, signed to an overseas team in Greece, making 40k euros per year. In each season, Kevin gradually improved and moved to a different country like Belgium, Poland, again Greece and Italy, and Kevin Punter right now is the 3rd highest paid player in Europe, earning $2.5 million a year. Last season he played in Serbia, this season he's playing in Barcelona, so Punter went from growing up in New York, the Bronx, to playing in a small town of 7,000 people in Greece, to now living in Barcelona, being a millionaire. But the funniest thing is that WNBA All-Stars have all the freedom to choose where they want to play in Europe, so they're kinda skipping that lowest European bracket grind. The only problem is that we have WNBA players who are making a shitload of money, but they're making that money in Russia.
It's not a lot of options that pay big money, and Russia is that one country that consistently pays big money when no one wants to go. Like, it's not a pretty place with a beach and, you know, palm trees everywhere. So some people prefer to go to other places like Turkey that are a little bit more Americanized and a little bit more friendly. My mindset was, I'm gonna get the money first, and then later in my career, I can decide to go to nicer places with warmer climates.
That's absolutely the case. Russia will make you a millionaire. For example, Brianna Stewart used to make approximately 1.5 million USD per year in Russia. After the war, she went to play in Turkey, making 1 million per year. And any American player in Russia could easily expect a minimum of 300k USD per year. So that was the market before the war in Ukraine. You either played in Russia for a lot of money or played in Turkey for less money, and other countries just picked the second-tier WNBA players, but they were still making more money compared to WNBA.
It's two totally different types of basketball. Like, you've witnessed how we operate here, straight to the point and practice is over. And you've also experienced overseas where it's just like on and on and on. GMs and owners of the team are just like, they need to practice. So then we practice twice a day, every day. It's just like a lot of wear and tear on the body, because overseas we play 38, almost 40 minutes a game. They hardly ever want to take the Americans out of the game.
120 shots first.
It wears on you mentally and physically, because you're just in the gym just doing stuff for, like, you feel like no reason. Like, all right, I got up 200 shots today, and what?
This one is a clear example between the difference of European and American basketball. Europeans train a lot, while AAU basketball is all about speedrunning, how much games can you play. And similar differences could be made to the regular season of NBA and EuroLeague, or WNBA and Women's EuroLeague. So for example, the recent Women's European champion Fenerbahce played 45 games in 10 months, while back-to-back champions Las Vegas Aces last season played 49 games in 5 months. So Europeans by default have more days in between games, and every single coach would squeeze their players in practices during those 3 days. So considering that WNBA players literally don't have an off season after they finish playing in WNBA, they pack their bags and go to Europe, it definitely can be difficult both mentally and physically. But I still find it ridiculous for a grown-ass woman who's a professional basketball athlete and who's also the highest paid player on the team to complain about shooting the ball in practices. And I'm not a sociopath, but I found a hard time feeling bad for WNBA players that earn insane money doing what they love compared to the average Joe. My consciousness refuses to believe that Augusta struggled that badly in Russia. Yes, you're far away from home, you live in an environment that's cold, but according to numerous reports and players, Russian clubs will hire you translators, chauffeurs, they will also give you renovated Americanized apartments so you don't need to live in a shitty commie block. So the Russian clubs were not just paying money on time, they were accommodating American players so that they could feel like back home.
Overseas, it almost feels like they appreciate us more by the pay that they're able to pay us. You know, we're in the middle of nowhere, but some players are making $1 million overseas, and it's like, why can't we do that here? Like, we haven't figured that out yet.
So finally, we reached the tipping point. We found out the narrative of this whole story. The purpose of this documentary is to show how bad is the USA for not paying their players what they think they deserve, as they're also forcing the American athletes to move abroad because they would starve with WNBA wages. And according to Augustus, Europeans, or the Russians, somehow figured out how to pay them more money. I like how none of the WNBA All-Stars go in detail how European teams managed to pay them more money, because basketball in Europe isn't profitable, and I will explain how they pay bigger wages to women basketball players in a second, but this crisis could be perfectly described by another WNBA superstar, Diana Taurasi, who proudly shows her 6th grade history knowledge. We have to go to a communist country to get paid like capitalists. Women basketball players have to go to a communist country to get paid like a capitalist. Truly well-articulated sentence by the face of WNBA. Well, I mean, she used to be the face of women's basketball, but this is just amazing. And this is what many WNBA critics misunderstand. Women basketball players don't want to get paid like NBA players. I mean, they wish to, but their main goal is to get paid the same money that they're getting paid in Europe. So I don't think it's that crazy to want European money back home, but the issue is when players like Diana Taurasi make comical statements about earning more cash in a communist country. Or even worse, when Skylar Diggins-Smith degrades certain NBA players, saying that they don't deserve their multi-million contracts, but she does. So once again, it's a game of narratives. I do feel like the average WNBA player fully understands that they have to play overseas simply because of the short WNBA season and actually embraces their job, but the league gets a bad reputation from certain players making absurd statements. And it's funny because negativity always gathers views, so all the wholesome experiences of players enjoying their time in Europe and overall loving their craft as basketball athletes gets it's hidden by a handful of players who straight up complain. And speaking about negativity and how the incels are using Caitlin Clark to spark that racial and even sexual battle between Clark and the rest of the league, I will talk about it shortly, but for now you're probably begging to ask the question, how did the Europeans figure out how to pay six-figure wages to women basketball players? Well, the answer is quite simple. With the Russians you have oligarchs, the biggest fish in the pond usually just buy an English Premier League club or even an NBA club, but the smaller oligarchs invest their money into a smaller sport that's not that expensive compared to European football, as you need way more money to build a winning football team compared to a winning basketball team. Also, there's local governments and cities that sponsor the clubs with the taxpayer money. For example, the biggest basketball club in Russia, CSKA Moscow, is owned by the governmental Norilsk Nickel Company, which is located in the most depressing city on the planet. Sometimes the club's front office has ties with governmental parties and can negotiate a bigger deal from the government. It works differently compared to the States. Europeans are kind of comfortable with losing money when it comes to basketball, while Americans are all about profits. Also, you have countries where basketball clubs are just subsidiaries of their football clubs and get financing from there, so there will be different financial situations with different countries, but every single one of them are losing money and some of them are bleeding money, as basketball is not profitable in Europe. That goes both for men and women. And that's why I smile whenever WNBA players go back to the States and parade that Europeans have figured out how to pay them more money, when the reality is that Europeans have sugar daddies that are willing to throw their personal money away.
I'm saying pay these women. That's what I'm saying. She shouldn't go elegant about it. You need to be paid because you command the same respect. The game is just as good. People have to go and watch it.
With the new heights and attention to WNBA or Caitlin Clark, the social media, specifically the YouTube scene, has changed. In the past you could do a compilation of WNBA lowlights titled Women Sucks, or just a commentary video about the wage gap and you could gather hundreds of thousands of views. But nowadays the narrative is widely different. It's Caitlin Clark against the whole league, and even people like Charles Barkley got baited by this, so it's even within the mainstream media that basically women are jealous of all the attention that goes to Caitlin.
You women out there, y'all petty, man. Hey, LeBron, you 100% right on these girls hating on Caitlin Clark. Y'all petty, girls. I expect men to be petty because we're the most insecure group in the world. Oh, you are. Y'all should be thanking that girl for getting y'all ass private charters, all the money and visibility she bringing to the WNBA. Don't be petty like dudes.
The question I have to Charles Barkley is to name at least one WNBA player who was petty towards Caitlin Clark. And it's great that you're still watching this video because I will show you the extent that drama baiting goes. I will analyze exactly what other players and media people said about Caitlin Clark, and trust me, this will not take that much time. So first one is the hate from an ex-basketball player, Cheryl Swoops. I would like to point out the fact that this is coming from Gilbert Arenas' podcast, a show that is ultimately a machine gun of bad takes.
I know what they can do. Get rid of all the Europeans.
I believe Gilbert is a master of pushing brain rot and getting clicks this way. He basically understood how to manipulate millennials. I've never took anything seriously that came from Gilbert's show, but anyways, Cheryl states that the records that Caitlin broke in her college days was not valid because of COVID and Caitlin playing more seasons compared to other legendary college women players. So basically, Caitlin had more time to break those same records.
You have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record? Yeah, that'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should be.
She proceeded to say that Caitlin dominated against 20-year-olds in college while she was 25, and what's interesting, Cheryl Swoops is a legendary basketball player, and I wouldn't want to call her opinion irrelevant, but it's definitely filled with negativity. What's funny is after this brain dead take went viral, people found out that back in 2016, 10 out of 12 players on Loyola Ramblers, a team that was coached by Cheryl, refused to return to the team after allegedly being mistreated by Swoops, and she got fired. This next one is completely crazy. So Diana Taurasi Taurasi is being painted as the bully of Caitlin Clark. The only thing that I found that Diana said about Caitlin was that Clark is going to get some growing pains when she enters WNBA. She was playing against 18-year-olds and now will be playing against women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Diana didn't say that Clark's skills will not translate, but there is gonna be a transition period where Clark will have to give herself some grace as a rookie, and boom, people begin painting Diana as a bully. Mind you that Caitlin Clark looked up to Diana Taurasi. Mind you that both Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi called Caitlin Clark their love child.
Is this where we talk about her being our child?
Oh!
All right, I'm gonna let you deal with it. You're the mom.
This is our firstborn, Caitlin Clark. As you can see, she has the passing ability of Shoshana Bird. She has the pull-up. She has long distance range, like middle linebacker Taurasi. And she has the swaggy competitiveness of both of us. This is our love child born in the internet era.
They need to do that like face mesh.
And mind you that Clark and Diana interacted on camera during COVID and everything was more than okay. And Diana complimented Clark's game multiple times, both when she was playing in college and when she got to the WNBA. There was absolutely zero beef and drama between Diana and Clark. And there was zero indications of Diana hating on Clark, and this is what these insults do. They call women sensitive, but they are the ones who take every single word for granted and clip it out of context just to hate. The only thing that even doesn't come close to hate that Diana said was that she would choose Paige Beckers over Caitlin as the first pick. I don't even know if Diana said it seriously, as both Paige and Diana represented Yukon Huskies, so maybe there's a connection between them, but you can label it as delusional take, but calling it hateful is stupid as hell. Same shit goes for Brittany Griner. Every YouTube channel clickbaits that Brittany is jealous of Clark, even though Griner never publicly talked about Clark. Also, Caitlin disclosed that multiple times after the game, Brittany said some encouraging words towards Caitlin. And that's completely normal within social media. Making shit up. When the WNBA season started, there was a narrative that Caitlin's teammates dislikes her, that they don't defend her in altercations, and overall are cold towards Caitlin Clark, and of course, also jealous of her success. Well, that changed pretty fast within the season.
Yeah, Caitlin, really efficient first half for you. Some more off-target passes in the second half, I guess. How do you go about smoothing that out as games progress?
Honestly, I'm trying to remember the other ones. Another one was to Aaliyah that was soaring out of bounds.
It's all right. Don't worry, because if you think, don't worry, because I mean, you look at Caitlin and you look at the way she passes the ball, and so sometimes things are gonna happen that way, and that's okay because we're not gonna let her hang her head. We're not gonna hang our head off of any missed passes because we're still continuing to gel together, and we know that she's a great passer. So if she thinks she can get that ball there, she's gonna throw it, and if I miss,
the mental gymnastics that these weirdos will go is truly astonishing. After the game against the Seattle Storm, both teams went separate ways to their locker rooms. It got clipped and titled that Storm's whole team purposely ignored Caitlin. The positive thing is that people understood that there's no story here and this is just bullshit drama, but there's a clear pattern and it gets even worse. So this is clearly an American thing. I don't want to get political, but a lot of fans see WNBA as woke. I still to this day don't know what it means word by word, but certain people are obsessed in ending wokeness. Sometimes they even see the woke thing inside the rooms late at night. But anyways, as one Lithuanian ex-basketball player that only played in Europe disclosed, the split between homosexual and straight players are 80-20, meaning 80% of the players in certain teams were gay. And of course there's nothing wrong with that, and when we talk about the WNBA, the faces of the league, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird and Brittany Griner, are also gay. And the fact that majority of the league is African American, this is where you have certain people calling the league woke. So the narrative plays out by itself in their heads. Caitlin Clark, the new superstar player, is both white and straight, so automatically the league players dislikes her for that. The first instance where I've noticed that Caitlin was being used to steer drama against black and homosexual players was against the Chicago Sky, when Clark, after a successful basket by Boston, turned to Kennedy Carter and said something, probably trash talk. Right away on the next possession, the ball was being inbounded to Clark and Kennedy shoulder checked Clark from behind.
This morning, this physical moment involving the WNBA's most high-profile rookie raising questions.
Unnecessary.
Chicago's Kennedy Carter shoulder-checking the Fever's Caitlin Clark, knocking her to the ground. The call initially deemed a common foul by officials.
Now, the first thing that I did was check who the hell is Kennedy Carter, and the things that I found was interesting to say the least. Basically, that she had troubles with her discipline. In July 2021, she was suspended by other WNBA team Atlanta Dream, as there was an incident where Kennedy got approached by her teammate Williams on the bench during a game in the first period and asked to cheer for her teammates. And Carter, who was already feeling disconnected with the team, proceeded to dismiss herself from playing in the second period, went to the locker room and stayed there for the rest of the game. Following the game, Kennedy approached Williams about playing time and suggested she wanted to fight her teammate. Williams, who reportedly got into an altercation in 2018 with then Sun teammate Alex Bentley, made it clear she didn't want to fight and removed herself from the situation. So Dream released Carter in 2021 after selecting her with the 4th overall pick in 2020. She was also kicked out from LA Sparks a year later. No details was given why, most likely due to disciplinary issues. She played in Turkey, moved to China mid-season, another red flag, and made her return to the WNBA in 2024. So in my opinion, Kennedy Carter is the Draymond Green or Dylan Brooks of the WNBA, but her game doesn't translate into winning basketball. She can ball, but her self-destructive behavior is simply not worth to deal with. I don't think there's any racism involved. I don't even think she's jealous of Caitlin Clark. I'm not defending her actions. The shot was completely unprovoked, but Kennedy Carter reminds me of that type of players who just can't think straight and has a massive ego, which leads to self-destructive behavior. Some media outlets say that Caitlin Clark is being targeted by WNBA players because of envy, hate, or racism, so let me say a few things about professional sports. I remember the time when there was a target on Lonzo's back because of his dad's statement, so different NBA players were targeting Lonzo Ball because of the hype that surrounded the Ball family, and I feel that this was a trend in the NBA and basketball overall for the longest time. Knowing how competitive are professional athletes, they will always search for different ways to motivate themselves, and targeting hyped up rookies who received an extra room of spotlight was always one of those ways. Did certain players felt animosity or envy towards Lonzo Ball? Absolutely yes, but majority of NBA saw the sunshine surrounding Lonzo Ball and wanted to humble the rookie. Even LeBron James received animosity from his own teammates because he was hyped up high school kid. There was no racism behind that. It was certain players feeling overly competitive and even maybe insulted by the fact that the high school kid is more popular than them.
We have better players than him in his position already on our team, though. His potential is probably the sky's the limit for him, though.
And it works like that even in regular life. Eager people will always feel challenged when a new guy takes away the spotlight from them in work, in the gym, even within the family. So this is exactly what's happening with Caitlin Clark. The old school players felt some type of way when Caitlin entered the league. Some of them are truly jealous of Caitlin, some of them maybe even hates her, but I can tell you that majority of the league fully understands the impact of Caitlin Clark. And even if many players are genuinely thankful for Caitlin Clark bringing the attention to the league, athletes will still go hard on her defensively and offensively, because that's how things work in sports. Every single WNBA player has a chip on the shoulder whenever they're going against Caitlin Clark, and it's not malicious targeting, it's just basketball. And let's not forget the fact that Caitlin Clark is a wonderful player that can score at all three levels: three-pointers, mid-range looks, and finishing at rim. So you need an extra layer of physicality just to contain players like Caitlin. So no wonder some players will use dirty tactics to try and throw off Clark during games. It's just textbook basketball knowledge. So it's been a really disgusting process in making this video, simply because I had to analyze the media that surrounds WNBA. People like to say so many things that are far away from reality, although I do strongly agree that specific people are a PR nightmare for the league, and what media does so perfectly, they single out those people and make it look like it's a widespread opinion of every single female basketball player.
What is your message to the sporting industry about why women deserve to make just as much as men do?
Just wake up and realize that without women, where are we at?
The word hate is being thrown so loosely in every single article of Caitlin Clark against the rest of the league. I've honestly didn't find any piece of material that could suggest the hate from any active WNBA player. It really gets to show you how negativity and drama baiting has become the staple of today's media. Of course, there are things that you can dislike about WNBA. I would just wish that they could think twice before yapping about not earning enough money, because I don't think that that message resonates with anyone in the society. We are all hustling and working hard to pay the bills when Simona Augusta struggles in Russia, earning $500,000 a year. But overall, the fans should stop with these toxic narratives. It's way more enjoyable to support a group of people instead of hating them. We can all cheer for WNBA with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark in it, and we can all wish success for women's basketball, as it would just increase the popularity of the game we love.